Welcome to Therapy Sessions Cutting Toxic Family Ties. My name is Dr. Sherry Campbell, and I'm your host. I am a leading expert in the niche of toxic family abuse, and although my show cannot substitute for therapy, it is a survivor-based show. In me, you're not only going to get an expert, but you're also going to get a survivor, as I have also survived toxic family abuse. I know how hard it is. The goal I have is to give voice to the voiceless, to provide skills to help you to protect your peace, to stand your solid ground, and to navigate and heal the heartbreaks caused by toxic family. Please have a pen and paper available to give voice to your thoughts as you listen to each show. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your bravery. So let the healing begin. Welcome back to Therapy Sessions, everybody. This is Dr. Sherry, and I have a really special guest on today. I saw her because she was reading from my book on her Instagram, and it says Angie with ADHD. And I have ADHD, and I was diagnosed at 42. I'm now 54, and I was so curious to talk to her because I think that ADHD and complex PTSD have a lot to do with one another. And I write about it in my book. And that is the book she was reading out of. And I feel like we're going to be like soul sisters by the end of this, because I haven't really talked to somebody that has specifically had trauma with ADHD, just so out there. So I'm so excited. Her name's Angie. Welcome to Therapy Sessions, Angie. Tell us about you.
Hi, Sherry. Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited. I was a late diagnosis at 28. So I had actually presented like a very hyper tomboy when I was a kid, but back in the 80s, it was, there were only boys that were diagnosed, if we even heard of it at all. So, being a late diagnosis and just kind of running into all these struggles and not really knowing, being misdiagnosed with depression twice, that kind of, set me on a path of figuring out what was going on. And then once having my own children and seeing symptoms in them right away, like my older one, I saw things in him that were just like flashbacks. That made me dive even deeper. So I went on to, kind of understand what was going on with my own ADHD a lot deeper. And as those things progressed, I started to realize all these other things are going well for me now that I understand my ADHD and how my symptoms are showing up and, how I'm communicating and feeling misunderstood. And all these other relationships were growing, and like I was having better connections, except with my family of origin. And I was like, what's going on? Why is it that I feel stuck in this place?
Why do you think you did feel stuck in that place specifically with your family? Why do you think you were able to sort of like figure out your ADHD outside the family, but not in the family?
Yeah, I was definitely scapegoated. I mean, basically from birth. But I'm the middle of 5 children. And the one story that is always told was that I was supposed to be a boy. So I had like a super fast heartbeat, I guess. I was born in 82. So I don't know like exactly what doctors did to detect, but they said I had a really fast heartbeat. So they thought I was going to be a boy. My father wanted 2 boys. I came out a girl. And so it was like already I was a problem because now they had to try for another boy. So now they're going to have more kids. So there was always this underlying like, oh, you were supposed to be this, but you're not, And my dad is, oh my gosh, when you talk about the controlling, critical, authoritarian, toxic, like that entire episode that you talk about that, I was like, that's him. Every single thing to a T. And then my mother was the emotionally neglectful mother who was also being, she was being controlled and abused by my narcissistic father. So I kind of always knew that that was my role. And it's kind of funny because I really think, there is always a talk about, is it the ADHD or is it trauma? Or, did the trauma cause ADHD or, whatever the case may be. And there's definitely times where I've paused and been like,
Mhm.
okay, is it just trauma or is it? But I think my ADHD is why I was scapegoated. And it's also why I survived and what kept me from falling prey to the narratives that they were creating. So it's just one of those situations where it's like, yeah, maybe it was pointed out because I had ADHD that I was a problem, but in a healthy family, that wouldn't have been the case anyway. Right.
Correct. Yeah, I can so relate to your story because I was also supposed to be a boy.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even believe when you're talking, I'm like, what is going on? There was a 2% chance I'd be a girl, and they didn't even have a name for me.
Yep. Same.
Because my dad, he was the last, of the lineage, and he had three brothers. And then the first child was a boy, my older sibling. And then they didn't even have a name for me. They had a boy's name for me.
Yep.
And I'm also been scapegoated since birth. And I think there's a couple reasons. I don't know that they didn't want a girl. I think they were happy to have a girl, but my mother hates women. And then men get in between that, and it could get taken out on me. But I was very hyper and I had a really hard time focusing, and my life was really hard.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I diagnosed myself. I was kind of telling you before the show, I was sitting with a client and I was like, maybe this person has adult ADD or ADHD. Let me just find some symptoms. And I'm reading them off and I'm like, oh my God, like
Right.
this is like 100% me. I almost failed fifth grade. I almost failed eighth grade. And I almost failed 10th grade. Like I had a 1.6 GPA my sophomore year. But there was also 9 marriages between my parents.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had a Ferrari parked, revving,
Right.
that I wasn't allowed to drive. And I would get so angry at myself that I couldn't not rev the engine,
Right.
and I couldn't control it. And I had no ability to focus. Because if it didn't interest me,
Yeah.
I was like, it was like
Yeah.
torture.
It's painful. Yeah.
It's so to force my body that was so hyper, and I was a big leg bouncer for years. Um, and I was scapegoated also because of the ADHD, because I became the loser kid,
Mhm.
right? Because I wasn't doing well in school, but I read more books than anybody on planet Earth. I was a phenomenal athlete, also a tomboy.
Mhm.
And I grew up in the mountains. I didn't grow up in California. I grew up in a different
Yeah.
state, but my whole life was outside. And I do think that my ADHD has been so key in saving my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hyper focus part of it, not a lot of people talk about. So
Right.
I'm so happy you shared your story, because you're actually putting things together for me that I've never had put together. Because tomboy, I had a fast heartbeat. And now I have a very low heart rate, but I had to move my body
Yeah.
so that the car felt like it was driving.
Yep.
And I don't think people understand that you're getting abused at home and then somewhat tortured at school. And then I was also labeled at school as bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Both my parents were teachers in the school that I went to. So I already had like that reputation of, oh, she's not her, her older brother or her older sister who, I mean, they were both valedictorians. So there's, and I was like, well, I'm not going to get valedictorian. I still was getting really good grades, but it was this, you know, there were a lot of unspoken expectations that we just knew, when you know your roles in the family, and you kind of, especially being the scapegoat, I know my siblings saw me be treated unfairly. And privately,
Mhm.
they would say, I'm so sorry you didn't deserve that, or, oh, are you okay? But no one stuck up for me because they knew they would get the wrath of that treatment. And it's terrifying and it's awful. So I understood that. But I think as you grow into an adult and it's like now I need to protect my kids from this. And now I need to like really understand what's going on. And when you bring up the hyper focus, that was because it interested me, because I want to understand. And
Mhm.
that's what led me to the diagnosis in the first place, was I wanted to understand what was going on. I wasn't anytime I was diagnosed with depression, I was like, I'm not depressed. Like, yes, at the end of the day, I am spent. I want to go to bed. Like, I can't do one more thing. I'm just so overwhelmed, frustrated, maybe, crying a lot during that time where I was just so confused. But every day I woke up like shot out of a cannon, ready to go, give it my best effort, like really excited. And I just always had that energy. So I was like, I don't think I'm depressed, but I do keep landing in this really sad place of confusion. So, like that needing to make sense of what was going on, which is part of your ADHD traits that I didn't know, led me to hyper focus on figuring out what is going on. And I always had that. Even when I was a kid, I would be like, someone would say something or give an excuse to why something happened. I'd be like, that doesn't really make sense. And so I'd ask another question. Oh, then you're the problem because you just asked another question and I don't want you knowing what I'm doing. I want you just to fall in line, follow what I say, and just accept it blindly. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. It's never going to work for me. And my gut was just like, there's something else there. That was a pretty harsh reaction to something that seemed really small. There's got to be more to that. Like I would say those things out loud because I impulsive I impulsively just said it. It just happened. And
Mhm.
that ADHD justice sensitivity is so strong in me that I just was like, Like I don't care if I'm sticking my neck out for one of my siblings, but that's not fair. And no, don't tell him he did that. He didn't do that. I was with him. So he didn't do that. And my dad's, authoritarian reign on the house was like, just give in or you're going to be punished. Just tell him you did it so he'll leave you alone. And I was like, nope. I don't care if you ground me. I always felt like I was grounded, so it didn't matter. But it was like, go ahead, ground me. I'm not going to admit I did something I didn't do.
Yeah, I came so both my parents were educated as teachers.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what is going on right now?
Yep.
Hello. And how is a child being raised by two teachers failing 3 grades?
Right.
How's that possible? Why are you sending me to a tutor?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of neglect as well. But I do think that when you're ADHD, so highly sensitive person traits, ADHD and ADD traits are nearly identical,
Hmm.
except that one has a negative connotation that people don't understand. And others like, oh, you're highly sensitive. Well, highly sensitive people hyperfocus. Highly sensitive people adhere to truth. Highly sensitive people are rebellious. They're not just sitting in a corner letting people run over them,
Right.
right? There's an adherence to truth that might get them run over. But
Right.
highly sensitive people are super strong. And I've come to figure out that I always say I'm the dumbest smart person you'll ever meet because I think I'm far more right brained than I am left brained. And the educational system is a left brained system. If you put Jeopardy in front of me, I'm not going to know anything. But because I became passionate about understanding why it was so bad,
Right.
and I ended up in therapy at 16, and I fell in love with being seen. And this woman was really life changing for me. And no one diagnosed me because I was doing so well in school
Right.
at some point, right? I got my shit together at some point, and if I could hyper focus, I could do it. Um, but going to therapy is what changed my grades. I think that so much of my grades were like, you don't care about me. So why do I care about me? I mean,
Right.
I'm going to go be me then. I mean, if I'm going to be hated either way, then I'm just going to go be me.
Yeah.
My sibling never validated to me anything in private. I think that because it was just the two of us, he just joined their gang.
Yeah.
And I was the loser kid and he got to be the star. So, I had that dynamic. But I think there's all these emotional impacts of ADHD. And when I was going through diagnosing this person, those broke my heart because I had every single one of them. I felt like because you weren't a valedictorian, then you weren't good. I wasn't doing well in school. I hated school. I hated math. I hated science. Until I got to chemistry, and then somehow I loved chemistry, bizarrely enough. But I was bored.
Yeah.
I was bored, and boredom for me is a form of torture.
Yeah.
I need to be moving my body. I always wonder, would I have done better in a Montessori type of system, right? Where there wasn't such black and white judgment over who's a good student and who isn't. And so I always believed that I was dumb.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, even to this day, I'm not very auditory. I can't sit in a 3-hour lecture and absorb any of it.
Right.
I might do it for about 20 minutes. Then I start doodling. My brain just cannot do that. So that was very difficult for me. And I didn't enjoy it. And then I started, way back in the day, school started to be a little bit online. And then you'd go to campus for like a seminar once a month. And I ended up getting my education more in a remote way, not full distance because they didn't have it, but more remotely. I did so much better teaching myself.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't auditory. So I figured out how I learn. I probably worked twice as hard to get the same grades as other people.
Yep.
But I'll tell you that today, my hard work has trumped both their talent and their genius.
Right.
Because I've actually out-succeeded most everybody that I've been raised with.
Yeah.
Okay. And no one thought I could do it because I lived in a very small place. And so
and they tried to make sure that you couldn't do it. Right.
100%. It's so interesting how people don't really understand that ADHD is a superpower.
Yeah, it can be with the right supports.
You know what it is,
right.
Like, you know what it is, and you start to understand it, then you know that there is superpowers. And there's obviously some really challenging things for me. What are the superpowers for you? Let's share what the superpowers are.
I think my intuition it's insane that I was being told to not listen to my intuition, that my intuition was wrong, that my sensitivities were, I'm overreacting. I'm always making a big deal out of nothing. Like, no joke, Sherry, my high school graduation cake said, "Congratulations, Angie Weiner," on it. And like, now that I've gone through all this and, when I got my ADHD coaching certification, the head of my program and I were doing a mock coaching session, and I revealed that to her, and she was like, "Oh my gosh."
No, like I am so sorry. Like, that just makes me tearful because I have it too. And like, to be that on your graduation cake?
And I had to be at my graduation party, mingling, everyone saying, and then that is what is written on my cake. And there's pictures of it. Like, there's proof. And I mean, obviously I had to just play along. Like, it didn't bother me, but that's how malicious and who's that funny to?
So sorry. One thing that I noticed in my life that I got that my brother didn't, I got mocked.
Yeah.
I was mocked. Oh, here goes Sherry again. Crazy Sherry. Here she goes again. So much drama.
Yeah.
Failing again. Like, I was mocked incessantly. It wasn't written on a freaking cake, but it was always there that I was a pain in the ass. I was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So those things are the big drawbacks of ADHD, because one, you learn that you're stupid or that you're just not enough, and you're mocked, and you're seen as dramatic, or you can't control your impulses, or sit still. I'd get sit still. It's like, frick, I'm trying to sit. I'm like,
Right.
you know, and all of that made my ADHD, the negative qualities of it, worse.
Right.
Because I found that the more I tried to control
Oh,
it,
yeah.
the worse it got.
Right.
Right. And then the worse I got, the more I got scapegoated. And it just went around
Yeah.
and around and around in this horrible circle. And getting out of my home and going to college.
Yeah.
I started feeling different. Now, I cried for 2 years. I didn't even know why I was crying.
Right.
I think like just maybe the pressure of all that negativity and being such in the spotlight was off, and I could now not pretend it didn't happen. And I was just crying. I mean, I think they would have diagnosed me depression, but I think I was grieving. I think I wasn't conscious of what it was at the time. I was not in therapy at that time, but I chose to live alone instead of with friends because I didn't want them to see me crying, because I couldn't stop the tears. And I don't even know that I was sad. I was also really angry.
Yeah.
I was really angry, but I was dependent still. Food, home, shelter in a sense, right? They were helping pay my rent for college and all the things. But to have that be so public and in writing is inexcusable. That is so abusive. And no one, I am just so sorry that happened to you. That is absolutely fucking insane.
It is. And it's
insane.
To show it. When I first showed the picture to my husband, he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, it was just, this was the level to which everyone just like knew. And that's the whole thing. It's passed down from my dad, you know, his narrative that he wants everyone, okay, this is your place, you know? And so everyone just knew that they could kind of treat me like that. And so anything I say, since I'm Angie Weiner and I'm being dramatic, if I'm shouting from the rooftops when something's wrong and I'm like, please pay attention, this is not okay, this thing is happening. It's like, everybody, I mean, literally until about 2-3 years ago, we're like, okay, I'm going to take what Angie says with a grain of salt. Okay, maybe it might be a little bit like that, but it's not as, you know, crazy as she's saying it is.
It's not as dramatic as she says. They do believe, you know, our narcissistic parents do take anything that is truth as drama.
Yeah.
It's the greatest way to gaslight, right? Like, your truth is drama. And I think the superpowers of ADHD that I have are, I don't have endless energy, but I have boundless energy. Right? Because I do wear out. I think we're maybe even more exhausted than other people. But like, I wake up and it's boundless energy. And I am excited for most of the days. I always wake up with anxiety, but I think some of it's anticipation anxiety as well.
Right.
Outside of the constant fear of the bottom's going to fall out, because that's a constant for me. Right.
Because it always has. You're on that cycle, and it just like, oh gosh. Yeah.
Like, ugh. Especially in a family like ours, right?
Right.
My ADHD wasn't nurtured or channeled. It was mocked. It was criticized. I was annoying. So when you grew up believing you're difficult, you're annoying, you're dramatic, how can any truth go through that? And I was already labeled as well. I mean, my parents weren't teaching in that school system, but it's a small town. I mean, I was already labeled. Teachers were prepared for me.
Right.
Right. And I look back and I'm like, what did I do?
Right.
I didn't beat anybody.
Right.
I might have had a little bit of trouble focusing. I didn't bully anybody. I got bullied. I didn't do anything. I sat in my chair, my leg bounced. I hate reading out loud.
Right.
And I couldn't go home and do my homework. I didn't care. I want to go outside and move my body.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say that being an athlete, I was a very elite figure skater. And then, you know, I was a top athlete in any sport I've ever done, because my brain can shut everything out and I can focus like that. And I'm naturally sort of coordinated. So, I've always needed to move my body. So for those of people that are listening, I mean, these are the superpowers. Movement is medicine.
Yeah.
When I am good at something, I am insatiable about it. Psychology, writing books, whatever, right? Expressing myself now, being the scapegoat, made me question a system. ADHD makes you a bit rebellious. I think that our brains pay attention to different aspects of life and relationships than maybe a neurotypical brain. I'm so glad that I do. It makes
Right.
me good at what I do.
Right.
I can see people in ways that maybe others can't see them.
Right.
Right. And I think the sensitivity is a superpower.
Absolutely.
And I think that justice is a superpower. I think that right brained intelligence is a superpower. In fact, I almost wrote my dissertation on how standardized testing is not an accurate measurement of intelligence.
Yeah.
It's only an accurate measurement of school intelligence.
Yeah.
ADHDers hate school, especially when you have to take gen ed stuff, right?
Right.
But when we get into focus, Angie, I feel like the energy, the boundless energy, sort of there's a happy part of being ADHD where you're kind of hyper and happy. And those things have been really gifts in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that, the justice sensitivity, especially in the sense of, knowing what the message you received as the scapegoat, or you're just the ADHD kid that is, annoying people. You get, kids with ADHD get like 20,000 more negative messages by the time they're 10 than their neurotypical peers. So just knowing, like, when I found out that stat, I said to my husband, I said, oh my gosh, can you imagine if just having ADHD and being out in the world, you're getting all these negative messages, just like what if they added in a study about the kid who is the scapegoat of their family and how many negative messages they're getting because they don't have a safe space. They don't have a supportive person. They don't have that. And, what I would do in my home is I would just go to my room. I would organize. I think I wasn't diagnosed with OCD, but in my educating myself as well, I was like, yeah, I definitely have never been diagnosed with it, but I built OCD as like a protective measure from my family. It definitely leaned toward perfectionistic tendencies, but I needed everything to be in its place and as close to perfect as possible so it would protect me from ridicule or doing something wrong. And
it's so wild, Angie, because I did a show on how lots of trauma survivors have OCD. And I don't think it's a primary diagnosis, but what I think you were doing, and I did the same thing. If my outside world was clean, then I somehow felt clean or not bad or I felt safer if I knew where everything was, because I can never predict the world outside my door of my bedroom.
Right.
So in my bedroom where I was sent all the time because I was bad, I was hyper, I was interrupting, I was doing whatever, right? I would go to my room and I would sit in there with all my stuffed animals and I would organize and I'd make forts and I'd made my own little room. So I so appreciate that you shared that, because I think so many trauma survivors, whether they have ADHD or not, have a lot of OCD traits. And it was just a way, like you just said, which I so appreciate, is it's making you feel safe.
Right. And I actually didn't realize it until, probably, I don't know, very, very recently. I used to have like a big set of Matchbox cars, and I didn't play with them like tomboy Matchbox, but like I lined them up in parking lots and I organized them, and I had them because of my OCD. Everything was lined up just so. And I remember saying to myself, these are all set up like this. I'm going to leave my room, to go to the bathroom. And I'm going to know if my brother came in here and messed this up, because my older brother would do that. I'm over here just minding my own business, playing in my own room. He had to come pick on me and notice that the door's open. So he would come and just like move them a tiny bit. And then when I would come back and be like, I know you were in here, and I would be upset because I was like I didn't do anything to you. I'm minding my own business. And I would, go off. No, I wasn't. I wasn't in there. You're crazy. But I knew for a fact, like I couldn't take a picture when I was in 5th grade and I was doing this, and have this proof. But for me, it was proof. I needed, proof to get ungrounded. I needed all of the things that I was going to do. And my dad did the thing where, you're grounded until further notice. So you just had to kiss his ass and do all the things. And you never had any idea when you would be ungrounded. So you were just supposed to
Yes.
What are you supposed to do? There was no communication, no understanding, no nothing. And like I said, I always felt grounded anyway, because, even if I didn't do something, I was blamed for it. So, there were these little things that I did as a kid because I just knew. I was like, yes, I felt misunderstood, but I wanted the proof to validate myself because no one was going to validate what I was saying. So me setting him up in that way was like, I'm going to know if he comes in this room because all my cars are set up perfectly. But it was a test and it worked. And, my older brother was scapegoated a lot of our childhood as well. He was made an example, and my older sister was the golden child for a while. And I would reach out to my brother when he would be getting punished or he would be getting hit or something. I would go to him to help support him. And he would slam the door in my face, get out of here. You're making it worse. And, I would just always try to reach out because I was like, oh, that's not okay. And did that ever happen for me? No, not into this day.
I think with him being the first scapegoat and you going to take care of him really could have made things worse, because your dad's way is you can't have anyone on your side.
Yes.
I mean, you were only really risking you, not him. But him being a child or a young man or a young teenager, I could see how he'd be like, Angie, just, let me suffer alone. Because I often felt I was getting bullied at school as well. And this one girl was like, I went to school one day and there was an I hate you note taped to my locker with 10 signatures on it.
Oh my God.
Just so you know, there were 60 kids in my grade. It was more than 10%. And we were nearing the end of that year. And this whole group of girls, so mean. I went into the bathroom and I heard some of the girls come in. So I pulled my feet up onto the toilet because I was scared. And I heard one of them saying, I think I'm going to apologize to Sherry today because it's it's the last day of school. And I don't want to end summer like this. And I really was only doing this because the head honcho bully, I wasn't the only girl this happened to either, but it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I put my feet down and I was like, yeah, it's the last day of school. And this is where my ADHD became a superpower. I'm like, you don't need to align with me because she's just going to do it to you next. You guys already hate me and I don't fucking care.
Right.
And I was crying, but they all mended with me that day and I let it happen because I just wanted the peace. But I stood up for myself in that moment. But I felt like, why would she be dumb enough to come be friends with me? Because the head honcho bully now is just going to bully her. And I didn't want that to happen to her. Not that anyone cared that it had happened to me. But you get to a point when you're so demoralized that you just rather be alone at that point, because it's so painful. And I think maybe your brother could have been in that state of mind. And of course, no one did it for you because they already watched what happened with him. And for me, it was just me and my brother. We didn't have that multiple sibling dynamic where there would be more than one scapegoat or the shifting so deeply, right? We had the whiplash of sometimes she'd golden me so that she could get my brother back into position, right?
Yeah.
But when you talk about the cars, and to me, it's brilliant.
Right.
Honestly, to me, that is so brilliant. And this is how that OCD saved your life. It wasn't about the objects themselves.
Right.
It was like, I've got a plan here at war.
Right.
And I'm going to set a damn booby trap and I'm going to have someone come in. And of course, they gaslight it, but they knew they were probably shocked that you were right. And this is a survival thing. When my OCD traits are very survival-based traits, they're not tapping and, I can't walk. I have to have, clean hands all the time. it is far more organization or safety based. Like I
Yeah.
triple check all my alarms at night. I do some stuff like that still. My pillow setup at night's a little interesting. But I cocoon myself in a bunch of pillows because I just feel safe. So I so appreciate that you explain that, because I know there's people out there listening right now that are going, oh my God. But you know what, Angie? I am so shocked. Can you say that statistic again?
It's kids with ADHD receive 20,000 more negative messages than their neurotypical peers by the time they're 10. So to every, one negative message another kid gets, the ADHD kid gets 5. And that's the whole thing, is it sets them apart because they're different and they don't care that they're different. And like when they're in a household, like now the way we're raising our kids, both my boys have ADHD. But we're raising them to be proud of their ADHD and to, to know that it can be a superpower and to balance their struggles with their strengths and lean into their strengths and just be aware of when your struggles are coming up so that you know what to do with it. But when you grow up without any of that support and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this differently for my kids, you kind of don't know where to start. And you don't know, how to support them for what they need sometimes, because whatever's happening with them is bringing up wounds in you. And I actually, when you say that you coming from just you and your brother and you didn't have, the many siblings to alternate the scapegoat, it was just like this constant bullying from everyone. And to become an adult and finally, like I remember you said, I don't know which podcast of yours that you were talking about, but you hit this point where you were just like, enough is enough. And I'm just going to stop trying to mend the fence. And I got to that place a few years ago and was just like, I'm not doing, like, why? I keep explaining myself and yes, they don't understand, but I lacked the knowledge at that point about 3 years ago that it wasn't about them misunderstanding or not having the truth. They didn't want the truth. They preferred the lie that I was the one that was in the wrong. And they preferred this narrative. And, I even felt so betrayed, even though my mom was, the safer parent, in realizing how much she didn't protect me and how she was like, well, if he's, my father is, if he's going after Angie, he's not coming after me, and still to this day doing that. Like they've been divorced for over a decade, and she still is following, what he says and what he's doing. And it's also led by my older brother. But I think my biggest, source of pride is actually still having 2 of my siblings that we formed this new relationship and this genuine understanding. And for the first time in my life, I can authentically be myself with them.
I love that.
And it's like an unheard of in these situations because of the fallout, and my older sister was the golden child, and she has left that role and is, we're tighter than ever. We have a real relationship, and, it all came to head with an outsider that was more toxic than my father. And yeah. And so it was that shock that woke up my older sister and my younger brother, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, this is obviously very wrong. This is very abusive. Why isn't anyone saying anything? To actually step back and go, oh, Angie's not being dramatic. She's absolutely right. And I always thought, from childhood, it was like, oh, the more I explain it, they're going to get it. They're going to say, oh, Angie was right. Or Angie does see this. Or, maybe we should, what if Angie is right? Or what if Angie is actually following something and she's on the right path? That wasn't a consideration. But now they were kind of forced into that. This outsider now is very toxic. What do we do? And it was great because both of those siblings said, step back, Angie, don't say another word. We're going to handle this because because I did a background check on this outsider because I was terrified for my other sibling. And they were like, step back, don't say another word. They are only going to blame you. They take everything you say and they twist it. So you just have to stop because then they're going to have nothing to attack. And I was like, oh, thank God. I absolutely, I would love to be able to do that. And although it's hard to step back because I knew exactly what was going to happen, I knew that they were going to be attacked because they're siding with me. You know what I mean? And so even though they weren't, they're siding with reality. They're seeing the truth. They're calling out abuses. They're saying this isn't okay. And so they're siding with me. Then my father was like, oh, you've been talking to Angie too much, or, that whole narrative behind my back. And I'm finding out little things. And it's just like, this is not okay.
Yeah, it's almost like we are the fruit of the poisonous tree. That's how they view us, right? When you, in kind of a backwards way, but I have a very small family, but there was a point in time where the original scapegoat, who I think it was my aunt, was aligning with me on some level, never against my mom, but I thought she saw me. And it ended up not being that. But I always felt afraid for anyone to take my side because I felt afraid for them.
Yeah.
And that fear is always valid because my aunt cut me off. Okay, because my mom was setting very evil things out to my house as gifts after no contact. Very evil. And I was to a point where I'm so happy for you that this third party brought in a closeness and an insight to you, because that's something I'll never experience in this life, is to have any sort of family. And most of us would take a mustard seed of any type of connection to family. So I love that for you, because if with everything you went through, you deserve to have that full circle moment. I mean, everybody really does that's out there telling the truth. But in toxic families, different is bad.
Right.
Different is just bad because different is always truth. And they don't want anything to do with truth, right? They love this lie and they love this game and all the chess pieces and the puppet master type of stuff. But one thing that I've noticed over the course of my life, I've been no contact now in June, my rebirth day, it'll be 9 years.
Wow.
And
good for you.
And yeah, so good. And I really, for 45 years, my growth was stunted.
Yeah.
Because I tried every PowerPoint, every tone of voice, every different type of time of day, different points, different PowerPoints. And I was just getting crucified. It just did not matter. My truth did not matter. And when I hit that bandwidth that you talked about, it was like something physical happened to me. It was like there was a rope inside me that tethered me to them, and it had been stretched to its capacity, and it finally broke. And I didn't feel sad. I felt finally.
Right. Like you can breathe.
And I have felt relief since. And I think that when you're ADHD and the scapegoat, and I think most kids with ADHD do become the scapegoat, and they perpetuate and make the other worse.
Right.
Right. So one thing I want to unpack with you is I see a great difference in this as a clinician and in people. My daughter has ADD, and it is dramatically different than ADHD. Those differences for me are like she can procrastinate She can get kind of stuck on electronics where I get bored. I'm early to everything. God forbid I'm late. I'm always early. I don't know how to procrastinate on big things.
Okay.
She underestimates the time it takes to get something done, where I overestimate it as being almost trauma. So I just get almost like manic and I just start it.
Right.
Those are some key differences for me that I see. And I don't think one is better or worse, but there are differences. So I'm having to parent somebody who's different than me. She runs just a little behind time, not obnoxious, not offensive, but just a little behind time. And I'm like so anxious if I'm not 10 minutes early.
Right. Right. Which,
right. So I do think there are differences. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. And my older son presents a lot more like I do. And then my younger one presents a lot differently. I mean, he definitely has the hyperactivity portion, but he is a lot more it's internalized a lot more for him. So, and I think you having to, do your be there early is part of your trauma. It's not that you wouldn't, naturally, like, because our time blindness with ADHD is so evident, like, especially like you said, we're interest based. So if there's something that we're interested in, it might feel like it's only been, 5 minutes because we're just, wrapped up, and all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, 2 hours. It has gone. But I think there's also that boredom factor. Like, if something is not interesting to me, like, don't even make me do it for 1 minute because I feel like it's been an hour and I'm in pain. And it does show up differently. And I think it's like, it's just the difference of how you're supporting it with, the child, and asking them the questions instead of just assuming. Like, kids don't have malicious intent. And I was always treated as if I had malicious intent. I was doing this on purpose to be a pain in the ass. And I was like, no, I'm not.
I always got this one. The message I got was, well, if you were an easier child, I'd be a better parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So children cause bad parents?
Yeah.
Why don't you educate yourself and be the leader? And the thing too with toxic families is parents shouldn't be gods. They should be guides.
Right.
And I had gods. I own you. You're difficult. It's your fault I'm unhappy. It's your fault I'm a bad parent. If you were just easier, it was always me. And my daughter's much more calm than I am. She's just calm. She's a little more comfortable in time. She loses time. I can lose time. My big struggle is I can do huge things. I can write a book, full freaking book in like 2 months. But for me to fold my laundry,
right,
put it away is torture. And I have to do things like have law and crime on YouTube to get me to
absolutely
to do those things. Also, one thing that I love that I didn't know until recently, in terms of like, I didn't know was a thing. I've always done it. To do the small task things, I need a buddy.
Yeah.
Like to clean my closet. If someone will just come hang out with me and I can hand them the clothes, then I can do it. If to do stuff like that, right, will feel like a Mount Everest to me. And I'll be like, oh, I can't. But if I get a buddy, then I can do it. And that, like going to UPS, I don't know what it is about UPS. I cannot go there by myself. I need a buddy to go there because I sit in there and I wait. And then I just start getting the the ADHD stuff going. And I'm like, why am I waiting this long? Like, I have a hard time with certain things. So I would tell anyone who has this, have a buddy.
Yeah.
If you need to organize, grab a buddy. It's nice to have someone to talk to. I think if I distract my brain in one way, then I can do the task.
Right.
So I use YouTube, law and crime, whatever to kind of help me. I move my body every day.
Yeah.
It's like solutions wise. I move my body every day. And I personally take 20 milligrams of Vyvanse. And the first time I took it, I think it to encapsulate ADHD would be overwhelm.
Yeah.
All of that overwhelm was gone. It's the smallest dose you can take for an adult. And I don't take it every day, which I love that I don't have to take it every day. But I do take it and it's been a game changer for me personally.
Yeah.
And I'm a very holistic, very natural type of gal, but this was really a game changer for me. And had I had that support young, I felt like I would have been a lot more gathered.
Right.
But who would know? My trauma was so intense that I haven't, since I've been on it since 42. I mean, I was fully cut ties with father and brother at 42 on my birthday and my mother at 45. I don't know how it would have affected me, but in case anyone really feels like they can't control their stuff, there are options. And the thing I like about Vyvanse, it only has one ingredient. There's no salts. There's nothing. It's a very gentle takeoff, a very gentle, I don't even feel it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that has been supported for me, and I've thrived since being on it. And I do think that there are differences but the big thing is the negativity that comes to you as a person because you've had it. And then you carry these beliefs in yourself, like, I'm not a good test taker. No, I get bored.
Right.
I get bored during the test.
Right.
Like, make it direct. Don't trick me. If you want to test my knowledge, right? Like, those things were really hard, but you can do hard things.
Right.
And I wasn't on any medication when I took my state boards.
Right.
So I still passed that thing. I crushed it. So you can force yourself. And I would just think that I think ADHDers are really hard workers. My daughter can study the night before a test and ace it.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I used to do. That's what I used to do.
Yeah, I was not her. I had to study, and then I'd get a B.
Yeah.
So I think that it has all kinds of different flavors, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And I think like the whole idea of, shaming someone for taking medication or saying it's like some sort of crutch. It's like, okay, so if your kid can't see, you're just going to deny them glasses and tell them to squint harder. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, and that's the whole thing. I just found out like 6 months ago that my older sister said when they found out that I got diagnosed, the idea with the family was, oh, this is just an excuse for her behavior now. That's how it was treated. And I was so excited to share. Oh my God, you guys, doesn't this make sense? And I don't even remember telling them, but I remember feeling like, oh, this makes so much sense. Maybe they'll understand me now. And to know that that was the narrative behind my back all these years. Of course, I wish my older sister and my younger brother would have told me the things that they've told me now sooner. So, because I would have pulled back much quicker. Like no, it's not okay. We're not treating people like that, whether it's me or someone else. And so taking medication or, seeing what it's done for myself and for my kids and how it makes a difference and how it allows them to use the behavioral tools. And the thing, it's not a behavioral disorder. It's a brain difference.
It's like a diabetic not taking their insulin, and I wish I would have known so much sooner and Vyvanse was very new when it came out. And I'm very glad that I ended up on Vyvanse. And that's why I wanted to bring it out into the open, Angie, because I'm not ashamed of it.
Right.
And I don't care who knows that I have it. I used to, but I don't anymore. I am so relieved. It's like, imagine having cancer, but not knowing what kind.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, go deal with it.
Right.
Well, how, right? And I felt powerless. And some of the negative emotional impacts of ADHD, like a sense of underachievement, not knowing where to put your focus, low self-esteem, trouble socially, all of these things were so painful. And then you top that off with a very toxic family. Because I've treated over the course of my 30 years in my office, kids with no trauma and ADHD. But what I would say is the ADHD in a toxic family, that person always becomes the scapegoat, hands down.
Yeah.
And, I'm just, I can't believe we already have to close down. But I'm just so happy you came on, Angie, because I think so many people don't understand scapegoating.
Right.
And its link to ADHD and how parents don't want to grow. They blame their kid.
Right.
Whereas you and I are becoming parents. My daughter takes 10 milligrams of a chewable Vyvanse, and it has helped her tremendously. as well, and that there are all different flavors of this. It's not all the same.
No. And I think that's why I wanted to start my podcast as the ADHD scapegoat. At first it was like, well, the scapegoat is the label they gave you. And I said, yeah, I'm going to flip it on its head though, because it literally is, go ahead and give me that and say that I'm the problem. Me asking a question for clarity about the truth is not the problem. Me doing a background check to find information on this dangerous person. Okay, if it was green, it's green, right? But it wasn't. It was very, very dangerous. And so my intuition and sharing that information was the problem. You can't listen to your intuition. What you finding out the truth or you asking about the truth is the problem. That needs to stop.
Well, and I also think with right? And I think with ADHD kids, we lead with intuition.
Right.
I think we think with a different part of our brain in many, many ways.
We can see those little things that people aren't saying. Like, that doesn't make sense. Huh?
Or we'll pick up on nuances, like a slight shift in a tone of voice. Or I had to do all of that just to stay safe as a kid.
Right.
To figure out, I could know what someone's mood is like that. I could feel it in my body. And I don't think without ADHD, I don't know that I would have ever been able to do that. Right. So I just think that it makes so much sense that the ADHD kid becomes the scapegoat, and that then those two roles perpetuate. Imagine, like you said, what the statistic would be for the ADHD scapegoat on those negative comments. And it's been proven that a slow emotional picking apart is far more damaging to the human spirit than a major trauma like a hurricane or a bomb threat or something like that. And it makes sense because you're getting, picked apart, and then your human spirit is just shrinking, and you end up succumbing. At some point with my mom, I'm like, okay, I mean, if I say that I'm the monster, like if I zip that on for you, like, will you go away?
Yeah. Will you leave me alone?
Because if that's the case, let me zip that fucker on. I will I'll be the monster. I'll be the worst monster there is. If that's going to make you go away, I don't care. You get to a point when you have, like, especially ADHD, and you've exhausted every avenue, and we see details other people's don't see. I think that you just get to a point where you're like, good. Okay, good. Yay. I'm the problem. Woo! Make me the problem, because it doesn't change the truth.
Right.
Angie, just doesn't change the truth.
Well, and then you think they're going to go away, and then they don't.
And they don't.
They keep going. They keep attacking you. The whole smear campaign, I went away.
Smear campaign, still 9 years in the making. My mom sent a horrible person to my page a couple of years ago to blast me. And I was like, okay, bring it. I thanked her. I'm like, thank you so much for showing my following that I live this every day.
Right.
Angie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
What message do you leave the listeners today? Just something that if they're like, wow, I identify with this, or what are some first steps that they can take?
Well, I think you don't have to carry their shame. And I think that's the part that never infiltrated me as an ADHDer. I didn't carry their shame. I just felt misunderstood. And so trying to explain or, trying to help educate, they don't want to have any self-awareness. So they don't want to be aware of what's going on with you. They don't want to understand, because then that makes them self-reflect. So, I mean, you've said it a ton of times, where stop talking and start walking. Like, you cannot waste all of your energy. You're already spending all this energy. And when you realize that you've been putting in, 200% of this relationship, and the second you step back and you don't try to mend, that relationship's gone. It's better for you. Like, the relief
is better for, that would be a whole other show that I might invite you back on.
I'd love to.
Because shut your mouth and use your feet has become a little bit of my slogan. And I don't think there's enough talk about what happens to the ADHD scapegoat after choosing. I mean, I talk about it a lot in my books, but I've never really talked about it on the show. So I'll be reaching out, because I think that to have another person with ADHD and the scapegoat, I mean, you're the perfect person to unpack this with me. And there is life after this.
Right.
And I did carry shame, but I carried it as shame in myself.
Right.
I carried it as I was fucking bad.
Right.
Right. And God, did I audition for 45 years to be good to those people.
Right.
I auditioned. Oh, it was like the best auditioner. So I think there's life after this. And, I'll have you back on and we can talk about life after this
I'd love
because I
that.
think it's super important.
Yeah,
Angie,
absolutely.
thank you
Oh,
for
thank you
coming
so
on
much.
Therapy Sessions. I just love
I
you
love
and
you
I can't wait
too.
to have
This
you
is,
on.
I know, I was like, we're like soul sisters, man. Everything
We
aligns.
are. Oh my God, our peers are teachers. I'm like, who is she? I didn't even know any of this. But I love that because it also shows that, teachers are pseudo parents to our children. And we should be treating everybody in a non-biased way.
Right.
We should not just believe every narrative we hear about every child. Like try to
Yeah. Pay
look at what's
attention.
beneath that,
Right.
pay attention, right? So I just love you and I cannot wait to have you back on.
Oh,
So I will
awesome.
be in touch. All right,
Absolutely.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Angie and I. We loved having you, and I'm certain you're going to love this episode, and we will have her back on. So until next week, be well. Take care of you. Well, Bravehearts, that concludes our amazing therapy session for the day. Please sign up on my email list at drsherrycampbell.com so that you can be in touch with me and see what's going on in terms of what I'm offering soon, what books are coming out, etc. Talk to you in a couple of weeks.